When I was 17, I worked at a hospital called Park Atwood. Oh, I just volunteered there. And it was because I was interested in becoming a nurse, and this voluntary experience would give me a bit of an idea of what, would be ahead of me. The hospital was a bit different to the ones I then worked in that it mixed regular, what they would call Western medicine, with alternative medicines. So to spend time making things like things called compresses out of ginger, and working with valerian and all sorts of different herbs and remedies, as well as working with, the doctors on, like I say, this approach we'd be more familiar with, I guess. Anyway, so whilst I was there, I also spent a bit of time with the art therapists, and I came away from my time working with them with some impressions that have never left me. And I was really struck because they did tell me about a lady they'd worked with. And she, when they first worked with her, made this absolute, rubbish piece of artwork. It was really, really, it had no substance to it. But what she did do was create this amazing story around this piece of artwork. It was so good that you could say it carried what she'd produced and gave it life. But seeing that, the art therapists could see that her world was more focused on her thoughts. Her life purpose was more based around the creation of story, around things that aren't necessarily tethered in reality. So they had this approach where they would look to balance things out in people. So with her, they then gave her a project to work on, which was to create a perfect sphere. I believe it was out of clay. And obviously for somebody who is very good at creating stories, but not so much at focusing on the detail, this would have been a huge task. I mean, it would be a huge task for any of us, to be honest. But yeah, that really struck me as, wow, I really feel that that's hitting on something that will be really important to all of us, this sort of balance that we need to achieve. And I have noticed that this tethering, this need to tether to the body, everyday things, the sort of material, is really important with people with autism. I spend all of my time helping Tristan to feel tethered to the physical world. All the things he talks about are not really related to what's going on around him. And I spend my time getting him to notice what the weather is like, to pick up his clothes and put them in the washing machine, to wash his hands, to sequence tasks. It feels like everything I do with him pretty much is to do with this connecting in with this more sort of physical 3D purpose. And it shows you really how important this kind of balance is. We all need the world of imagination, but we also need this world where we are, yes, like I say, connected into what can feel more boring, more mundane, more really run by the will. Yes, that then leads me on to things like AI. I see now in my work, I work in communications, that really this is a field that I could really ask Gemini or ChatGPT to do largely. And that really bothers me, this feeling that you could just really decide to become untethered and just um, not pay attention to detail. And it feels, yeah, really bad for humans. It really does. Um, and so that means too, I'm really aware of that for my two younger sons because they are more sort of digitally engaged. Tristan could not give a crap about phones or really much to do with the digital world whatsoever. But my other two sons, are much more engaged in it. And it does really, really cause me to feel the urgent importance of doing activities that don't involve um, mindlessness, don't involve the sort of passive disengagement. I feel like it's really, really bad for health. So that's why I encourage them a lot more they attend martial arts lessons. I feel like that connection with the body and the will is something that actually keeps you well, keeps you tethered. And that's why I encourage them in lots of things, lots of activities that don't involve the digital, or if they do, they actually need to take part in it. So recently I've got the app Brilliant, and Johan started just answering some of the questions. And I just think it's so important, this sort of engagement in things. This feeling that as human beings, we all have a purpose, a reason to be tethered here. Yeah.